Hello everyone and welcome to my new video. And what is this video about? Well, I'm going to make an ambient texture generator using only Ableton stock effects, and I'm going to do this in Ableton Live Suite. So some of the devices that I will be using may only be available in Live Suite. Some of them may be in Live Standard. I'm sure some of them will be in Live Standard. However, if you're using Live Intro, it's possible that some of them may not be. However, I don't think that that means that you can't do the same thing with maybe some other effects or some VSTs that you use or something. Anyway, so what am I going to do? I'm going to get a load of audio effects into a rack, and then I'm going to macro loads of stuff and then just hit random, and then it's going to make interesting ambient textures, sort of ethereal. I don't know, could be good for sampling and using for elements in something, I don't know, or maybe using them to make cymbal sounds. I don't know. Anyway, let's get started. Let's make an audio track, and then I'm going to start by getting in the vinyl distortion to just start making a little sort of trickle of noise like this. Turn the volume up, and then I'm going to group that straight away and open out all the macros. Let's extend out all the macros here. I could maybe begin by macroing this density. I might maybe leave that for now. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do then is macro a filter. So let's get a filter, let's put a filter in here. And maybe we could just sort of macro that frequency. Let's do that. Okay, that's fine. Now I'm going to sort of smear that a little bit with some reverb to kind of just sort of take out all that sort of clickiness. I'm going to turn the dry wet up, maybe turn the size all the way down. And then we kind of get this sort of thing. I don't think there's anything here I want to macro that much. That's just a little sort of smear. Now let's get some resonators. So yeah, really what this is going to be about is using resonators, two of them, one running into the other one, and sort of randomizing their settings to see what that gives us. So let's start with this first one. In fact, let's just pull the second one straight in as well. So this is going to be a little bit fiddly. We're going to map all these things, but let's turn the decay up. Let's turn the dry wet up on both of these. Decay up, dry wet up. And then I'm just going to macro each of these notes. So we'll do this one to macro 2, this one to macro 3, this one to macro 4, this one to macro 5, this one to macro 6, and then this one to macro 7, this one to macro 8, this one to macro 9, this one to macro 10, and this one to macro 11. Okay, that's all done. Now we could maybe introduce some stuff here. We could maybe use these filters. I might just turn the filters off. Okay, so without hearing anything, I can see that this is abominably loud. So I'm going to get a limiter in. I'm going to get a limiter, put a limiter at the end, so that when I bring this back, the level is going to be a little bit more measurable, more reasonable for our ears. Okay, then I'm going to go and get the hybrid reverb. Where's the hybrid reverb? Let's get the hybrid reverb in here. I'm going to put that in there, and then I'm going to switch this to algorithm, and I'm going to macro the algorithm. So let's map the algorithm to macro 12. And we could maybe do something like, let's do the decay and the size. That leaves us a couple of macros free. Let's turn that all the way up. I think maybe I might kind of mask or smear this a little bit more with some delay here. We'll turn the delay about halfway. Let's set this to something like 6. Turn the filter off. I'm not really too bothered about that. Right, okay, let's turn that down and bring this in and see what we've got. All right, so we've got this kind of thing. So now, when we kind of randomize these macros, we're going to randomize all the notes of the resonators and indeed the reverb type. So let's see what that's like. Okay, so what we've done here is that the filter is a little bit too low. It's gone down to 90 hertz and it's basically filtered out all of the vinyl distortion crackle. Maybe putting the filter here wasn't such a good idea, but let's just address this right now. Let's click on this filter map and just bring this up to something like 230 hertz. See, already that sounds like some sort of dissonant orchestra tuning up or something. Okay, let's hit random again. Okay, it's very quiet, so maybe what we could do is we could squash it a little bit with the OT to T to T T to T and put that, let's put that before the delay, maybe. Yeah, it's got this kind of endless sort of ride cymbal, sort of endless bell type of sound, which I find quite interesting. Let's hit random again and see what we get. Yeah. Yes, that's nice. So if we like that one, we can save that. If we like that one, we can save it as a macro variation. So let's just save this one. Let's randomize another one. Yeah, that's nice as well. Let's save that one as a new one. Let's hit random again. Yeah, this is good. Let's just save all of them. Let's just go new variation. Let's click random again. Yeah. I like this. This is good. Very, very ominous, very atmospheric, it's a bit dark, really. But maybe you want that. Maybe you want that sound. A little bit scary. Yeah, the transitions themselves are kind of interesting because they need to settle because we're sort of switching all of these resonators. They're going to create these clicks, these sort of, don't know what you'd call them, like errors or something as they sort of quickly switch times, that they create these really satisfying clicks that are sort of quite percussive. And you use that in conjunction with a bit of that delay, you can get these kind of interesting transitions as you move between the variations or the randomization. Did I just save that one? And let's save this one anyway. Might be the same as this one. We can go back to all the... Okay, so why don't we resample some of this? Let's just record a little jam here. And just resample some of these randomizations. Yeah, it's got a horror movie or sort of dark sci-fi thing about it, which I quite like. All right, I think that'll do. They'll just keep going forever because this vinyl distortion is just creating a little bit of noise that just keeps tickling these resonators because their decay is up so high. They just keep sort of whirring away. It's very nice. Anyway, let's stop that for a second. Oh, I didn't stop. No. Okay, so you can't turn it off, so you can either mute the track or you can just turn it off here. And in fact, when you start it up again, it might kind of fade in. Let's see if that's... Yeah, fades in a little bit. Okay, so let's have a look at what something we could do with this resample. So there's sort of quite a lot of transients in there. Let's maybe just put it into a sampler and just sort of trigger it from, well, I'll just use my QWERTY keyboard, I think. So you kind of, that's almost a bit of a rave. That's almost a bit of a rave kind of pad sound. Let's bring the volume up a little bit. Okay, very nice. Turn the filter off. Let's maybe sort of try and make some sort of interesting, I don't know, just some sort of interesting bizarre pattern or something. Let's just sort of draw in a load of notes here. Let's come down a little bit slow. It's Monday. Let's come down to 90 BPM and let's maybe use the velocity deviation in the MIDI clip to jump around the start position of the sample. So let's turn the pen off, turn the velocity down, turn the deviation up, and let's maybe introduce a little bit of chance here. Let's maybe select all of these clips, turn these down to something like 56% chance, and then we'll go into sampler and we'll go to the MIDI tab, we'll go to velocity and we'll say assign the velocity to the sample offset, turn that value all the way up. And now what's going to happen is that when a MIDI note happens with a random velocity, it's going to jump to a different position in the sample. Let's see what that gives us. Yes, very jagged, very staccato, bit weird, bit avant-garde. Very atonal, not really musical at all, but it's more about the texture. So it's a little jagged, that's okay, but I actually kind of want to make it have a little bit more life. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn retrigger off down here on the voices. And then what that means is that when a new voice is re-triggered, it gets its own envelope. Whereas when retrigger is on, the envelope gets restarted for each new voice. So if you turn that off and you give them all a really long release time, each instance of the voice, each voice that's triggered gets its own like individual envelope. At least that's what I think is happening. Judging by the sound of the results, you'll understand what I'm saying. So now you can hear how they're got a lot more release. Whereas if I put that back on, you can hear how the release from the previous voice hasn't finished its tail. I like that very much, especially for this sort of slightly strange percussion. And if we pull the sustain down a bit, we can get a little bit of stuff going on with the decay at the start. And if we wanted to mute it a little bit, we could put a bit of filter on there to sort of soften it a bit. It's very mood bells. And we can also do things like maybe apply some pitch modulation here. Let's set LFO2 to the sample and hold LFO, turn the frequency all the way down, go to A, and assign this to the pitch. Put this to about 50. Let's increase the voices to 32. Yeah, really sort of weird kind of percussion idea. It's very sort of abstract. It's kind of gentle, but also a bit frightening, which I like that. I like that sort of juxtaposition because of the dissonance of the samples that was generated by using all those parallel resonators. Not parallel, in series, one into the other. And then if we wanted, we could apply a little bit of pitch envelope as well. To give them like a little bit of a mallet-y type sound, maybe. A little bit of pitch modulation, pitch envelope. We could try, again, what's interesting about, as I was saying earlier, about the sampler is polyphonic up to 32 voices. And I was saying that if you turn retrigger off, each voice can have its own envelope. That can kind of also work with the filter as well. So if we Let's see what happens. So we can assign the velocity to the cutoff of the filter. Let's have a look at that. Yeah. Filter cutoff to velocity. So if we turn that all the way up, turn the frequency all the way down, now the frequency is going to be modulated by the velocity which is being deviated in the sequencer. Let's see what that's. If we put this to morph, we could assign a filter, sorry, not a filter, an LFO to the morph. Let's put the morph in about halfway. Let's go back to the modulation tab. Go to LFO 3. Let's set this to, no, this one will do. Let's just make this really slow. Go to the A destination, assign that to filter morph. More resonance. That is dark as fuck. Maybe apply a bit of shaper here to sort of grunge it up a little bit. Maybe even a bit of filter envelope. Let's pull the decay down a little bit on the filter envelope. So we're really using these very, very short envelopes on the filter, on the pitch, and on the volume to add this really short percussive hit at the start. But then the release of the amplitude envelope makes this huge tail on all of the voices. Could even apply some pitch modulation as well if we want, but then that might start to sound a little bit too silly. Maybe a tiny little bit. Turn retrigger off, just leave that running in the background. Oh, let's turn retrigger off for this LFO as well. Beautiful. And then again, if we sort of want to process that even more, we could pull OTT in. I quite like to group the OTT with a drum bus on another chain, get the drum bus to really pull out those transients and use the OTT to sort of maintain this squashed level on all of the sort of tails, as it were. Wow. Maybe a limiter after those two, just to sort of, so we can come up nicely up to 0 and not be too loud. Now, that's kind of fun. So normally I would think to use the velocity to modulate this release. On this occasion, I'm already using the velocity to do quite a lot of, well, the sample offset, which is quite important. I don't want to change that. So I might maybe think of something else I can use to modulate this release to kind of make them cut off every once in a while. So maybe we could just use the expression control. Let's get the expression control, put the expression control before the sampler, and then I'll go to random here, set this to modulate, sorry, to remote. Map this to the release time, But then let's maybe adjust the output range. So the minimum is something like a second. Yeah, and then the maximum is going to be the full release time, which is 20 seconds or something. So. We can actually see it jumping around the sample here. It's kind of fun. Let's add another expression control to the decay time as well. Similar sort of thing. Let's say that the minimum range is about 20%, and then the maximum is something like about just over a second. Let's see what that's like. You can't beat a modulated envelope, in my opinion. It's the stuff of life. Whoops, we didn't do that. So delete that track, please. Right, let's rename this one Texture Generator. Could maybe let's do another. Let's just do one more and then I'm going to stop. Right, let's do one random. I wonder if this will work. Let's do random on the reverse. Just see if this works. So we can sort of randomly reverse. Don't know if that's going to really work. No, that doesn't seem to work. Okay, let's try it with a binary LFO. Let's go and get the LFO in and let's put that after the sampler. Let's switch it to remote. Let's go to binary and what kind of time? Let's make it tempo sync. Let's maybe have it something like 1 every quarter note and then see if we can map that. Is that working? Yes, that's working. So now that binary LFO, which is either on or off, is just switching the sample into reverse or not into reverse. I don't know if that's going to sound good. Okay, very, very satisfying. I had a very nice time doing that. So let's just have a quick little recap on what we've just done. So we made this sort of ambient texture generator, which just makes these drones. And you map a load of stuff in the drone generator to these macros. Then you can randomize it. If you want to, you can save variations and switch back to variations if there's some that you like. That's pretty intense. And then you can completely switch out the entire mood of the whole thing and go almost into a completely different space. Yeah, it's pretty cool. And then we sampled a big load of that here. Really long sample, and then we put that into sampler, which is always nice. One thing about sampler and simpler is that you can put huge samples in there. Like, there's not really any limit. I've put entire songs in here before just to sort of mess around. And then we're using velocity to jump around the sample start position and a whole load of other stuff. And I don't need to explain this, I've just done it. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed that. Go away and do that now and make your own weird atmospheric textures and sample them and turn them into weird beats. I'm going to go and put this on my Patreon now, where if you would like to support this channel, you can do that there and download this live project plus many other live projects and max patches and all kinds of other stuff. And your support all goes towards making more videos like this, which I hope you enjoy very much. I appreciate it. Or you can just copy exactly everything I've just done. It's entirely up to you. Either way, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again very soon. Have a nice time. Bye.